In question 6, they are asking to get you to give the IUPAC name for molecules, alkanes that have branches. And so the first step with these is to find out what's called the parent chain or the backbone. The parent chain or the backbone is the longest straight chain you can find without lifting up your pencil or going backwards. So for example, in this one, we could have 1, 2, 3. We could have 1, 2, 3. You could have 1, 2, 3. It looks like no matter which way you go, the longest chain you can find is 3 carbons long. Now, if you ever have a tie like that, multiple chains that are all the same length, you can just choose one of them. They all should give you the same name. So here, I'm going to choose the chain that's left to right, and I'm going to circle that so that it stands out from the branches. Once you know what the backbone is, you want to name it as if there were no branches on it. So here we have 3 carbons, and the prefix for 3 carbons is prop. So the backbone is going to start with prop. You can see here that we have only single lines. That means we have only single bonds, and the infix is AN. Last but not least, this molecule has only hydrogen and carbon in it. In the skeletal structure, this one on the right, if it had something other than hydrogen or carbon, they would have to write the symbol into the structure. And since we don't see any other symbols, the suffix is going to be E for a hydrocarbon, something just made from hydrogen and carbon. So the backbone here is propane. Okay, now that we named the backbone, let's name the branches, and we'll name these one at a time. Let's start with this first branch on the left. When you name a branch, you first have to say where it connects to the backbone. And to do that, you have to number the backbone. Now, we could number our backbone either left to right or right to left. For example, I could number it 1, 2, 3, like so, or right to left, 1, 2, 3. You want to number it in the way that gives the branches the lowest number. In the green way of numbering, one branch is coming off of carbon 2, and the other branch is also coming off of carbon 2. In the red way of numbering, one branch is coming off of carbon 2, and the other branch is also coming off of carbon 2. So these tie, and it doesn't matter which way you number it. I'm going to go with the green. All right, so let's start naming that branch we have that the arrow is pointing to, the one on the left. That's attaching to the backbone at carbon 2. Always between numbers and letters, put a dash. In this branch, there's only 1 carbon. And so the prefix for 1 carbon is meth. Because it's a branch, immediately after the prefix comes the suffix YL. And so this will be methyl. So 2-methyl is the name of that branch. Oops. So now let's name the other branch, this one on the right. That's attached to carbon 2 also. Always between numbers and letters goes a dash. There's only 1 carbon in that branch, and the prefix for 1 carbon is meth. Finally, it's a branch, so immediately after that prefix comes the suffix YL. Because these are both the same type of branch, we can smush them together. They're both methyl branches. And so we can take the 2 numbers and separate them by a comma, 2, 2. Always between numbers and letters goes a dash. You have to use a prefix to say how many branches you're smushing together. Here we're smushing 2 branches together, and so the prefix would be di. And what type of branches are they? Methyl branches. So you can smush the names of these 2 branches together into 2,2-dimethyl. So now we have 2 pieces to our puzzle. We have 2,2-dimethyl, and we have propane. The backbone always comes last, so you'll put the name of the branch, or the branches, 2,2-dimethyl, in front of the backbone. And the name for the whole molecule is 2,2-dimethyl propane. Here it says to give the IUPAC name for the alkane below. And so the first thing we want to do is to find the parent chain of the backbone. That's the carbon chain, the longest carbon chain you can find without lifting up your pencil or going backwards. So for example, you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You could have 1, 2, 3, 4. You could have 1, 2, 3. Oh, actually, let's say 1. Oh, yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4. Looks like no matter which way you number it, the longest chain you can find is 5 long. So I'm going to go with the blue one here. It's 5 long. The green one was also 5, and so we could have also chosen that as the backbone. We would get the same name. So circle that backbone so that you can clearly see how it's separated from the branches. Now, let's name this backbone as if there were no branches on it. It has 5 carbons, so the prefix is pent. Between those carbons, there are only single lines, and so there are only single bonds, and the infix is AN. You can see that the molecule is only made up of hydrogen and carbon, so it's a hydrocarbon, and the suffix is E. So the name for that backbone is going to be pentane. All right, now that we've named the backbone, let's name the branches. And when you name branches, the first thing you have to do is to say where they're connected to the backbone. And to do that, we have to number the backbone. Now we could technically, theoretically, number this backbone left to right or right to left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to number it in the way that gives the branches the lowest numbers. So for example, in green, the branches are on 2 and 3. In the red way of numbering, the branches are on 3 and 4. Because 2 and 3 are lower than 3 and 4, we're going to number it in the green way, left to right. Okay, now let's name these branches one at a time, starting with the branch on the left. That's connected to carbon number 2 on the backbone. Always between numbers and letters goes a dash. How many carbons are in that branch outside of the circled area? Only 1. 1. And so the prefix is going to be meth. Because it's a branch, immediately after the prefix comes the suffix YL. So the name for that branch is 2-methyl. All right. Let's name the next branch. This one right here. That is connected to the backbone on carbon 3. Always between numbers and letters goes a dash. In that branch, there's only 1 carbon. The prefix for 1 carbon is meth. Because it's a branch, immediately after meth comes the suffix YL. Now and so that's the name for that branch. Now these two branches are the same type of branch. They're both methyl branches, and so we can smush them together. You can take the two numbers and separate them by commas, 2, 3. Always between numbers and letters goes a dash. Then you have to use a prefix to say how many branches you smush together. This prefix is a common thing to forget. Here we're smushing 2 branches together, so we use the prefix di. And then say what type of branches they were. They were both methyl branches. So we can take 2-methyl and 3-methyl and smush it together as 2,3-dimethyl. Now, we have 2 puzzle pieces. We have 2,3-dimethyl, and we have pentane. The name for the backbone always comes last. So you can take the name for those branches, put it in front of the name of the backbone, and that gives you the name for the whole molecule. The name for this entire molecule is 2,3-dimethylpentane. All right, let's try this one. Now, this is an alkane that has branches, and so the first thing you want to do is to find out what the parent chain is. The parent chain is the longest chain you can find without going backwards or lifting up your pencil. So, for example, different possible parent chains are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Or even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Looks like no matter how you number it, the longest chain you can find is 6 carbons long. Now we had more than one of these, any one you choose will lead you to the correct answer. I'm going to choose the one in blue that goes from left to right. Now that we know what our backbone is, we want to name it as if there were no branches coming off of it. There are 6 carbons in this backbone, and so the prefix is going to be hex. The lines in between the carbons are all single lines, not double or triple, and so we have single bonds, and the infix is AN. Last but not least, there are only hydrogens and carbons in this molecule, and so the suffix is going to be E, to let you know that it's a hydrocarbon. So the name for the backbone is hexane. All right, now that we have the name for the backbone, let's try to find the names for the branches. In order to name the branches, you have to say where they attach to the backbone, and to do that, you have to number the backbone. You want to number it in the way that gives the branches the lowest numbers. If I number the backbone left to right, like in green, I would have 2 branches on carbon 2 and 1 branch on carbon 4. If I number it right to left, I would have 1 branch on carbon 3 and 2 branches on carbon 5. 2, 2, and 4 are lower than 3, 5, and 5, so I'm going to number it in the green way. You number the backbone to give the branches the lower number. Okay, now let's name these branches one at a time. First, the branch on the left. That branch is connected to the backbone on carbon 2. Always between numbers and letters goes a dash. That branch only has 1 carbon in it. The prefix for 1 carbon is meth. And because it's a branch, immediately after the prefix, you add the suffix YL. So the name for that branch is 2-methyl. Let's go to the next branch. This branch is connected to carbon 2. Always between numbers and letters goes a dash. There's only 1 carbon in this branch, and the prefix for 1 carbon is meth. Because it's a branch, immediately after that prefix comes the suffix YL. So the name for that branch is also 2-methyl. Last but not least, let's name this third branch. That branch is connected to carbon 4. Always between numbers and letters goes a dash. This branch has 2 carbons. The prefix for 2 carbons is F. And because this is a branch, immediately after that prefix comes the suffix YL. Now these 2 branches are both the same type of branch. They're both methyl branches, and so we can smush them together. First, combine the numbers. 2, 2. In between numbers always goes a comma. In between numbers and letters goes a dash. So 2, 2. Now we're combining 2 different types of branches, and so two different branches, they're the same type. And so the prefix is going to be di. That prefix tells you how many branches you smush together. Last but not least, you want to say what type of branches they are. And they're both methyl branches. So you can smush those, the 2-methyl and the other 2-methyl together to get the name 2,2-dimethyl. Okay, so now we have 3 sort of puzzle pieces. One is 2,2-dimethyl, the other is 4-ethyl, and the third is hexane. So we have to put these together. We know hexane comes last because it's the backbone. But we have 2 branches, and we have to decide what order to put them in. Will 4-ethyl come first, or will 2,2-dimethyl come first? And the answer is that you alphabetize these based on the number of carbons. So you're comparing the M in 2,2-dimethyl and the E in ethyl. E comes before M, and so 4-ethyl will come before 2,2-dimethyl. So you'll have 2,2-dimethyl going right before hexane, and then 4-ethyl coming after that. Coming before that, sorry. So ethyl comes first because E comes before the M, and then the 2,2-dimethyl. Always between numbers and letters goes a dash, so after the L in ethyl and before the 2 in 2,2-dimethyl, you'll have a dash. And the name for this whole molecule will be 4-ethyl 2,2-dimethyl hexane. Last but not least, here we have a ring and a chain. And so whenever you have a ring and a straight chain, you want to separate them in your mind. And ask yourself, how many carbons are there in the ring? 1, 2, 3, 4. Then, separately, how many carbons are in the straight chain? 1. Whichever one has more carbons is the backbone. So here, the ring is the backbone. Let's name that backbone as if it were all by itself and didn't have any branches. It has 4 carbons. The prefix for 4 is bute. If you look at the bonds between those carbons, they're all single lines, and so we have only single bonds, and the infix is AN. You can also see that there's only hydrogen and carbon in this molecule, and so the suffix is E. Also, it goes in a ring, and whenever you have a ring, you add in front of the backbone name the prefix cyclo. So the name for this backbone is cyclobutane. Now, let's name the branch. You could argue that the branch is coming off of carbon number 1. That's the lowest number you could give the branch. But, technically, you wouldn't give a number to this branch. And the reason is because no matter where you put the branch, it's all the same molecule. Remember, these molecules can move in space. If you just rotate this molecule, you'd get the next one. Rotate the next one, you get the next. Rotate the last and you get the other. And so these are all the same, and because no matter where you put the branch, it's the same, you don't have to say where you put the branch. So technically, you don't have to give a number for this. Now, this branch only has 1 carbon. The prefix for 1 carbon is meth. And because it's a branch, immediately after that comes the suffix YL. So the name for that is methyl, and that would go in front of the backbone name. So the name for the whole molecule would be methyl cyclobutane.